everyone. I just want to start off today's session with a fun fact. Did you know that over 95% of malware attacks occur from web and email? That's over 95% of the attacks. So what can we do about it? So welcome everyone. My name is Stephen Lee. I'm the Cyber Riskers Tokyo chapter lead, and today is a very, very special episode. And we'll also be doing things a little bit differently to what we normally do. We have a special fireside chat with our special guest. And this is more of an informal chat where I'll also unmute the lines at the end of our session, so you can ask your questions directly to us. So please send through your questions throughout the chat, and I'll feed them through to our speakers. And I'm also very proud to be joined by our Cyber Riskers leader, our very own Thomas Uehara. He's a cybersecurity VP at a global financial firm. And I remember first meeting Thomas, I think it was late last year, was it late? And we were talking about cybersecurity. And Thomas, he's an ideas guy. So he throws out this idea and says, hey, Stephen, let's do a cybersecurity podcast together. And I'm thinking, like, do you remember that, Thomas? Do you remember throwing that down? And I remember thinking, I was like, who's going to listen to this cybersecurity podcast that we produce? And fast forward to today, here we are. And we're very excited to be doing this, and it's all thanks to the support from the community that we get. So thank you everyone for tuning in and for your support. I'm going to hand it over to Thomas to introduce our guest speaker and the topic for today. Go ahead, Thomas.
Hey everyone. Oh, by the way, I look a little different from the poster, but don't worry, it's me. I just, I went bald here. So I want to go ahead and introduce myself real quick before we start. I was born and raised in Hawaii, and now I'm, living and working in Japan. I'm what the industry calls a cybersecurity evangelist. I'm passionate about cybersecurity and knowledge sharing in the industry. I'm kind of like a grandpa rambling about his old glory days, So my current role as a cybersecurity strategist and puts me in charge of a lot of program, project, and service management, as well as transformation of the cybersecurity sector or team. I have 10 years in the industry, and about 15 years in the IT industry itself. I got into security because I want to be a hacker. And I remember telling my mom about it. I want to be a hacker. She didn't know what it was at first, but then after a while, she found out what a hacker was, and she told me, hey man, don't be a hacker. That's very, very bad. That's a bad thing to do. So I ended up being in security, which is like the next best thing, hacking for the good guys, just protect them. Steven's reached out to me, like he said, about a year ago, and I've been helping him with things here and there, collaborating with him, trying to create this knowledge sharing community for cybersecurity professionals in Tokyo. Just recently, he officially made me part of the cybersecurity, the Cyber Riskers community team as the thought leader. I'm really looking forward to hosting this session as well as future ones. And as the title of the session will tell you today, we'll be discussing zero trust concepts and models. And joining me will be a very special guest who's a leader in this sector, Kowsik Guruswamy. Did I say that right? Guruswamy?
Yeah, I got that.
He's the CTO of Menlo. Thanks for joining us, Kowsik. Tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I am Chief Technology Officer with Menlo Security. Been here pretty much since the beginning of Menlo. I guess my journey into security started right around 2001-ish, and prior to that I moved to the, when I came to the Valley, when I say Valley, it's the Bay Area in California. My first 5 years I was doing computer graphics, building flight simulators, game development, visual simulation, that kind of stuff, right? Nothing to do with security, but it was well. So when I graduated from my master's in computer science, I had two main interests, computer graphics and networking. So the first 5 years was really spent there. And then a buddy of mine said, hey, there's a startup and you should come and check it out. And then, so I joined OneSecure, which was my very first foray into networking. Well, I'd done a bunch of stuff in grad school, right? But This was like, I wrote the first line of code for what it eventually become inline intrusion prevention system. That entire market started there. And then we got acquired by NetScreen, and then got acquired again by Juniper Networks. And then I was a distinguished engineer at Juniper Networks for about a year, overseeing all of their deep packet inspection technologies and whatnot. Then I left to start my own company, and then I sold that for 7 years later, and then joined the team with Menlo. I think a big part of the history of Menlo is even the founders, they had other startups, gone through some acquisitions, and I think a lot of us really came together because we were frankly just tired of security products not working. I think that was the big motivation, right? I mean, if you think about, this is contradictory, but if you think about security products in general, the last 20 years, we haven't solved anything. Like $1 trillion have probably gone into it, but we can't come up and say, this is it, guys. Like, it's just going to stop all the attacks. We're done. Like, just pick one vector, email, web, USB, doesn't matter. Everybody tries to keep getting it to 98%, 99% accurate, but then there's always it's never about if you're going to be breached. It's always, when am I going to get breached, right? So I think we wanted to see if we can do something different now that there's lots and lots of infinite computing in the cloud. I think the mission was, can we do something different? Like, we don't have to solve everything, but can we just pick like one thing in security and just solve it 100%? And that was what kind of drove a lot of us. And here we are 7 years later, and doing pretty well, I would say.
Thanks for that. Yeah, a lot of I noticed that a lot of security guys, they come from different backgrounds. They're totally different, not security.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was originally a chef, by the way. I wasn't even in the IT industry.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I gotta get some recommendations and maybe recipes from you next time.
Anytime, sir. Oh well, it's an honor to have you here, man. And I also want to once again thank everyone for joining us as well. This is my first time doing this, so it really means quite a lot to me at this time. So yeah, let's get started, and let me start by asking the most important question of the day. What is the zero trust model / concept? I mean, you hear about it. It's been a buzzword. It's been around for a while as well. Kowsik, how would you describe that zero trust model?
Yeah, so there's what I think is zero trust, and I think what people are trying to define as zero trust, which is a little bit far apart. I'd say like a lot of the ideas originally came from, there was a paper from Google, I forget exactly when, it's called Beyond Carp. And I think their idea was, okay, look, people are working from home, people are working from everywhere, the perimeter is dissolving. So we need to figure out who's coming into our network. We're gonna get rid of VPNs, everything is gonna go public to the internet. There's not gonna be any firewalls, but we need to figure out who this person is. If that's an employee of Google, what kind of laptop or desktop are they coming in from? Where are they coming from? Given some of that evidence, what should we give access to, right? I think that's kind of what started the whole thing. And a lot of what people talk about zero trust now, I think it's really around at the network level. Like Gartner talks about zero trust network access, right? I think it's a lot about, look, if you're running your own private application inside your data center or VPC, and you want not to use VPN, but you want contractors to now allow those applications, so they have some mechanism to allow access to it. But the reality is, what people are claiming zero trust today, it's really granular trust or conditional trust, which goes back to the Beyond Carp, because you make all those constraints and decisions, and you say, okay, this person is now allowed, and when you make that decision, or this products make a decision, that person has full access to the data or the application. There's no air gap, there's no isolation, there's nothing like that, right? So in my mind, zero trust truly means that you don't trust anything. Like, for example, if I go to a website, I don't want to come directly in contact with the website. When I go to a SaaS application like Salesforce or ADP, I don't want to directly access Salesforce. I want something in the middle, right? I mean, Menlo's had a lot of success in Japan with our product, with the isolation product, and I think largely because there was a government mandate about creating an air gap, that you need to have, this air gap between what you're accessing. And so to me, zero trust truly means that there's some layer in the middle that, depending on the context, Either the user is not trusted at all, meaning like maybe there's a temp worker or a contractor trying to come into your VPN, and that happens all the time, especially in financials, right? I mean, when you do a merger and acquisition, the company that just got acquired, they have their own IT department, they have their own network, own infrastructure. So you don't want to give them VPN access because you don't want everybody to come into your network, but you still want them to access some internal applications. So there, the trust is placed on the applications and data that you have, and the company that you acquired, you don't trust them yet. They haven't fully be. So to me, zero trust and isolation go very much hand in hand. One represents the other.
I see. Yeah, and I think with zero trust, it's a very very kind of taboo in Japan because Japan's culture is kind of based a lot on trust, right? So
right.
Yeah, so they either trust their workers won't do anything bad in the company. They trust that the workers won't do anything bad to the company, but
right.
in reality, I don't think that's the
there's a lot of honor. It's an honor system, right? There's a lot of honor there. So there's a lot of trust around people. I mean, funnily enough, this morning, like I did another webinar. I interviewed a deputy CISO at the 4th largest hospital in the United States. It's called New York Presbyterian Hospital. And one of the things that he brought up is, telehealth is a big deal now because people don't want to go in for a check-in, right? They just want to do a video with the doctor, and so this hospital has these apps, and sometimes they give out tablets, and with Android or whatever. And his point was, once the tablet leaves me and goes to some patient or some customer, I don't trust the status of that Android at all, because I don't know what they installed it, I don't know where they went there. So I want to treat their access coming in to access their own health records. I mean, he was talking about zero trust in that context, right? So it's not about the person generally, but it's that the person might still be a very good person, but given the fact that they're now using the same machine to go to the internet and go to internet, click on emails, click on a bunch of stuff, you just don't know the state of the machine, right? So I think it's less about the person, it's more about the software and the device that they're using that makes the trust harder.
It's kind of like, I guess, when you're driving a car, you may be the best driver in the world, but if someone else hits you,
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like I said, with Japan having this whole thing is based on trust and a lot of models based on trust, I mean, there must be some type of like challenges that, goes into implementing this zero trust model into an organization that's already established a trusted, a trust modeled security. What are some of these challenges that you see in the industry? Being a vendor, I'm sure you have a contact with a lot of people, asking about all these issues.
So there's the pre-COVID challenge, and I think there's the post-COVID challenges. Pre-COVID, I think a lot of what we heard was customers are moving to the cloud, right? I mean, I think Microsoft kind of forcing people's hands because they're end-of-lifing Exchange, and even if people don't like the cloud, they have to use Office 365. So they're being forced to move to the cloud. And the moment they move to the cloud, what's happening is the traffic patterns are significantly changing. So if you've got a corporate, which is like a hub and spoke model, you've got branch offices, think about Exchange running inside the corporate data center. So when you go and download a 10 megabyte attachment, you come in via the VPN from a branch office, you just go to your on-premises Exchange, and you download the attachment. It's pretty simple. But now that it's 365 is running in the cloud, that attachment download now has to exit through 20 layers of security, go out to the cloud, fetch the 10 megabyte attachment, run it back through those 20 layers of security, out the VPN, right? So things start getting really slow and congestion. So people are like, okay, that's not working, so I'm gonna allow my branch office to go to 365 directly. And the moment they do that, all of a sudden you lose control, you lose visibility, you don't have DLP. What happens if people not just go to 365, they go to other places, right? And I think that's where people are starting to suddenly realize that model, the moment you move stuff to the cloud, the security has to go to the cloud. You can't rely on on-premises appliances anymore. I think that was pre-COVID. And post-COVID, I think things got worse because typically, I realized that, the Japanese culture it's not really a work from home culture. A lot of people are being forced to it, right? There's a lot of, dinners, and you got to shake hands and see the person, and there's a lot of personal relationships there. But from a VPN perspective, lot of the companies had only about, they spec'd out the infrastructure for maybe 10-20% people working remotely. All of a sudden, everybody working remotely, now the VPNs are catching on fire, right? So it's a similar problem. And so the direct connect, I think those are some of the things that we're hearing, right? And think, but the net is, once you move to the cloud, your security layer needs to be up there so that no matter where the person is, you could be at corporate, at branch office, you could be working from home, in a cafe somewhere. So you always have that consistent security policy applied no matter where you are.
And that kind of, I guess that kind of works with the zero trust as well, because, like the cloud is the most dangerous place, like everyone says, right? I mean, everything comes from there, not just the users themselves grabbing, files from their own, from their own computers or either from their own file servers and stuff like that. But they also have people who are trying to infiltrate, where they send emails with URLs for you to check, and that could actually, open you up to a lot more risks than most you want to. How do you, and how do you? I guess some of the challenges that we see in the financial industry is that there's a lot of URL like sandboxes where they would redirect to a sandbox or something, and it transforms the URL though when you do that.
Right.
And the people who are doing business, they come back and say, hey, the URL changing, changing is not, it's super long, and that doesn't look too professional, and there's that
perception,
perception of like some unprofessionalism when it comes to like some of these controls. And I'm guessing this zero trust idea will kind of, and platforms based on the zero trust idea will kind of stop all of this together,
Yeah, so I mean, let's kind of back up a little bit, right? I mean, I mentioned I built the first inline intrusion prevention device. And if you think about security in general, it doesn't matter what the product is. The last 20 years of cybersecurity has been largely around these products trying to figure out whether something is good or bad, also called detection, right? So they use different techniques, and the techniques have evolved over time. Back in the day at the IPS, we used signatures, regular expressions and stuff like that. And then anomalies. And then at some point it became sandboxes, behavioral signatures. And then it was machine learning, and then it was AI, and then deep learning, right? But consistently, the approaches to detections have changed, but fundamentally it's around trying to figure out whether something is good or bad. And then every single security product in the market today gives you only two options as an IT admin or a security admin. You can either allow or you can block. Now, that binary decision can be very difficult for a large company, for a large organization, right? Because if you allow, then you run the risk of a breach. Somebody's going to get infected. If you block, then you've got users complaining you're not letting them do their jobs. And right, and I mean, the story was like JP Morgan is a customer of Menlo, and one of the early business cases, like almost 5 years ago, I think, is they had blue coat proxies, okay? And what they figured out was much of the malware was coming from uncategorized websites. So they basically said, look, we're going to block all of the uncategorized websites on the blue coat and just cut everything off, just big chunk of the internet you don't have access to. But the challenge was, all of a sudden you've got all these financial advisors going, look, I've got my customer who's a multimillionaire, and I'm trying to go to this person's blog so that when I call the person, I can have a conversation and just say, hey, how are things? And I saw your blog, and how are things going? But then the blog is uncategorized because it's not very popular, and you're blocking me, so I can't do my job, right? So, and they were getting about 5,000 trouble tickets every month. I mean, granted, JPMC is a very large organization, right? And I think that's really where the Menlo came in, where they chained a blue code with the Menlo, with the isolation, right? Like, we call it zero trust now. Back then, it was still isolation. But then anytime there's uncategorized, they would go through Menlo. So one, they were able to take the risk down, and two, there was no IT escalation. And I think the nice thing about this whole isolation and zero trust model is, instead of trying to figure out what part of the internet is good, what's bad, if you just assume everything is bad on the internet, okay, not the people, just the internet, you don't know, right? Like, nobody knows whether a website is good or bad. That's the bottom line. There's always false positive, there's always false negative. So why don't we just assume everything is bad, and you have this air gap, and when you go to some website, we run a browser in the cloud and we mirror those sessions. So you always have a safe distance, from the website. And so you'll never get infected.
Like what about all these new I think the next gen stuff coming out, right? They're all talking about like machine learning and AI, trying to find out what these bad sites are and stuff like that. I mean, what do you think about that? Does that kind of like,
Yeah, so I think we're inching towards, getting better at it. But even AI, nobody's gonna claim that AI is 100%, right? I mean, I don't think there's any vendor that says we've got AI, so we guarantee you. So I think because it falls back to you're still trying to detect. You're just using different algorithms now compared to signatures. But end of the day, you're still trying to detect. And once you realize or once you detect whether something is good and there's a false positive, you're still going to allow the user to connect to the website. At that point, the trust model breaks. And I think that's really, I think at least that's my view, right? I mean, this whole detection model is a slippery slope. And the thing that, I mean, you're on the other side, like, you're actually in the financial. The organizational overhead of having products that don't work 100% is very painful, right? I mean, think about you, like, for your team, you got a SOC team, they're doing alert triaging. Like every alert, especially in the Japanese culture, I've heard this over and over again. Like every alert has to be triaged. It's just it's a cultural thing. Like you have to go through, like everything has to be organized. And you guys are having a really hard time hiring SOC engineers. I mean, like for 3 years ago, I think 2 years ago when I was there before COVID, like people are hiring from Australia or other places because there wasn't enough local talent to hire in the SOC teams. So alert triaging is one. And then once you do that, you got to deal with false positive, false negative. And then even if you think a user may have gone to a website, you're gonna have to go and take their laptop away and re-image it and clean it and put a new, gold CD on it, right? And then during that time, that user has a productivity loss. So given that security products on the network don't do their job completely, there's all of this expense and all of this organizational overhead. We're just all swamped by it. We're just wasting time every day.
It's an exhausting cycle, like
right. I mean, so IE11, right? So IE11 is a good example. Just a week ago, Microsoft announced a 0-day. It was a remote code execution vulnerability in IE11, and I posted on LinkedIn and I was joking around that the Menlo team we yawned really loudly and then we all took a nap. Like actually, right? Because none of our customers were affected by it, not because we have a better browser, not because we have better signatures, but because by architecture, the IE11 users, which by the way is the most popular browser in our cloud. All of our enterprise customers, the global 2000 users, global 2000 customers, they all use IE11, and none of those customers had to do anything at all. And especially with the VPN issues that I talked about, plus working from home, trying to patch the endpoints right now on time, it's very difficult. People don't have bandwidth.
It's not going to happen.
That's what I mean by the organizational overhead. Like once you adopt the zero trust model via isolation, a lot of those things that you just keep doing because you have to do just goes away. I mean, you still have to patch for compliance reasons, but not for security.
Yeah. And I know we're talking a lot about just technology and the zero, technology that helps with this zero trust model. But I mean, is there some other maybe processes or something that actually implement this zero trust model as well? Because as we know, in IT security, we always say people, process, and technology. There's the three foundational pillars of what how to build an IT framework.
Right.
Firm, right? So is there the zero trust model that actually help in these other foundations as well? Do you think, do you have any?
I mean, I'm trying to kind of think on the spot here. I think as it relates to technology, I think we both in agreement that there's something interesting there. I think from a process perspective, I think there's education that needs to be had, and I'm thinking out loud, right? But one of the challenges, one of the things that I heard about a month or two ago, especially with COVID, is caller ID spoofing is on the rise. And the reason is because we're all working from home, and let's say you're working for a company with 10,000 employees, you don't know all the people. like at least in the office, when somebody calls you, you can say, hey, and you're not sure, you can walk over to the person and and say hi, and it's like, hey, did you send me this email? And you can do the stuff. And now you kind of take that email, that little cell phone for granted. So if somebody is impersonating your colleague and they're calling you saying, hey, I'm from HR, I need this information from you, you don't really have a good way of verifying if this person is real or this person just impersonating. I mean, it's another type of phishing, right? But it's so there, I think the zero trust is more around, okay, so if somebody's calling you, like stop and question and understand, is this person actually for real? Is this person really work in your company? Or do you need to go to your HR database and look up this person, And the caller ID spoofing makes it harder because the phone number in your HR database is going to map with what's on your phone. So you need other means of, figuring out this person is actually real, right? So I think from that perspective, maybe on the people side, I can see zero trust more from an education perspective, like how to be more vigilant and careful. Process, I'm not sure.
I think actually you outlined it very well with of the process as well. Like, people, when people call and they say I'm so and so from HR, they're like, oh yeah, the guy from HR, just give out my personal information, whatever, right? But I guess if there's a process that the company implements to say, hey, if someone says that this is who they are, these are the processes to take, and that process itself becomes zero trust because now you're not trusting anybody that's calling you anymore, right?
Correct.
So, yeah, I think you outlined it very well there.
Yeah, I think the other technique that I tell people is if you do get a call, just hang up and say, let me call you back. And then if it's a caller ID spoofing and you call that number, now it's going to the real person, right? It's not going to go to the person that spoofed it. And then I try to use the same technique, like just general cyber hygiene. If I get an email from my bank saying my password is compromised, instead of clicking on the link in that email, just log into your website. You know the website, your bank site, just log in there, and if there's a problem, you're gonna get some, notification or something, right? So I think that just having that vigilance and making sure that you got an email, okay, like you can't really, you don't know where it came from. You just simply don't know, and so like what can you do to still be on top of it and still get work done, but at the same time not fall into these things?
Yeah, I just got an email a while ago too with that whole link stuff. I mean, thank God it was just the training, but I had an email that said, hey man, the passwords has been breached, blah blah blah. You have to go and change your password. Click here to change your password and stuff like that. But me being the security guy is always paranoid about these things. So instead of going there, I would go to I would open up a browser and go to the actual website instead of clicking on that link.
Right. I think those are like little things that I think we can all do just to kind of stay safe. But mobile, I think, makes it harder because at least on the desktop, you can kind of mouse over and you can see the underlying link, etc. Right? And then mobile devices just don't have the visual cues. And so when you get an email, it's very hard to tell like is it the real link? Where is it actually taking you? So you just don't know.
Yeah, and I think also it's kind of like a convenience, right? A lot of people, they don't like having to open up another browser or something. They just like clicking on that thing and just calling it a day. And I think convenience really plays a lot of factor on in security as well, because a lot of, even in the industry, I think a lot of people are getting exemptions and things like that just for convenience because it's
very true. Very true. Well, so I want to get to the root cause though. I think the reason why people are choosing the convenient route is because security today forces you to decide between a better user experience or better security. You can't have both. I think that's the problem, right? I mean, so like, in fact, I was in Japan like 2-3 years ago, and like, I was talking to this customer and I'm like, hey, there's this, I can send you some information, maybe send you a PDF. And he's like, no, don't send me the PDF because my email gateway will block it, but you can WhatsApp me. So, I mean, it's like, because now all of a sudden you're forcing people, you're making life inconvenient for them in the name of security. So the ideal security works in the background and doesn't kind of mess with your regular day-to-day life and just still, reduces the risk, right? That's sort of the holy grail in some ways. And the zero trust model and isolation gets you there because you I mean, you can click whatever you want, go wherever you want, and you don't have to force. I think this is one of the things that I do talk about. When it comes to web security, I think, we have secure web gateways and proxies, URL filters. So the IT admin is the person that's expected to be the expert. And this person, that group of people, they define the security policies with the AV, the sandbox, the next-gen, whatever, and they decide what PDF gets through, what's not. But when it comes to phishing, though, like we are completely just relying on everybody now becoming a cybersecurity expert all of a sudden, right? Because we don't know, there's no technology for it. And so now we're like throwing people into training and telling them, you got to be careful, don't click on this, don't click on that. And then there's an internal approval process where we ask them to click on it. So it's very confusing. It's like, okay, I could click this email, but not that email. Like, how does that work?
Yeah. It's what was it again? I think it's a lot of firms say, cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility, right?
Yeah,
That kind
but
of
like
stuff.
you can't expect, even cybersecurity experts fall for phishing, right? Like, how do you expect, somebody in the organization to not fall for it? I think that's a tall order to ask people to do that.
Yeah. I think, and I know we've been talking about a lot of isolation technologies here, and then that's kind of like the value and benefits that organizations get from the isolation, right?
Yeah.
Like they allow users to be more free, and it empowers them. They don't have to worry about security anymore. It empowers them. They can click on anything they want without having to, have to get it approved by someone else.
Right.
It's like,
right.
What am I doing something right? So it's kind of I think that's where that isolation technology really becomes benefits of the organization.
It liberates people. I think it relaxes them, and once you do that, then they're not complaining, right? And they're not telling IT, you block me. So IT doesn't have to maintain a big exception list and constantly worry about, okay, do I allow this? Do I block this? There's just a lot of those things just go away, right? And then there's no alerts. And in fact, like every time I come to Japan and I say no alerts, everybody's like, what? What do you mean no alerts? Because we deal with alerts all the time, and now you're telling me you don't have alerts. And I'm like, yeah, because we're not trying to decide whether something is good or bad. Everything is bad. So we just isolate and let people go wherever they want. So you don't have to go and triage.
Yeah, I guess the resources are freed up too, so that they can work on something more.
Very much so.
More so, because it's you as an organization, you'd hate to hire some person who's a very high value resource and have him work on triage all day, or have him work on analysis
and
all day.
It's burnout, right? Like within a year, they're like, they don't want to see any alert anymore for the rest of their lives. They want to move to Hawaii and chill under the coconut tree.
That's true. They just want to have some rum or something and just kind of chill.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess we did talk about these isolation technology, and Menlo being one of the browser isolation technologies. I kind of want to just go into real quick about what are the challenges of implementing something like that inside of inside of a firm that's already been established, right? So same question, just specifically on the technology part this time,
So what are the challenges of implementing isolation in a large company?
Yeah, because I would say like in the on the technology stack, you'd see like you have like these a lot of people have that standard, like proxy, firewall, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
Having Menlo, there must be some type of conflict between that technology stack where you the browsers.
Yeah, a good question. I think that would have been an interesting question about 4 or 5 years ago when when the Menlo was just starting. Like isolation was pretty much the only thing that we did, right? But you fast forward now, we're a proxy, and so we can come in and replace your blue coat or your whatever other proxy that you have, and so we can come in and replace it because we have URL filtering, we have AV, we have sandbox, we have a full granular policy. But the only difference is, as it relates to security, we have isolation as that centerpiece that drives everything. We also have CASB, we also have DLP, so it's a full-fledged proxy. So I think the conversation these days is a lot easier because we're still a proxy in the cloud, but the key differentiator is, I joke around, but the market category for this is secure web gateway. right? And we're a visionary in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for a secure web gateway. And one of the quotes from, I think last year or the year before, they were like, if you really care about security, then you will go with Menlo. Then I'm like, it's a secure web gateway. So if you're not providing security, you're just a web gateway on a URL filter. What's the value? What value are you providing to customers, right? So
Yeah.
I think the conversation now, it's a lot easier because we can come in and basically just replace your proxy at scale. And I mean, I'll share with you an example. So the Department of Defense in the United States, it's called DISA. They have 3.5 million users, military personnel, people working on ships, etc. And 2-something years ago, they put out an RFP for cloud-based internet isolation. Okay, it's a massive project. And I think the challenge that they're having, like let's talk about the technology, but the business challenge that they were having is they wanted to inspect everything, right? Like they want to SSL terminate everything. They want to make sure that network is squeaky clean. But the cost of doing that was going to be a few $1 billion because of the size and the scale. So what they said was, instead of doing that, what if we just embrace this internet isolation and this cloud proxy idea and move everything to the cloud? So by the time what comes into my network, there's nothing in there. It's just clean. And so there was about 40 different vendors that applied for it, and Menlo was actually picked in the top 2. And that pilot is all around taking isolation and just scaling it out, right? And I think so as it relates to isolation, I think the challenges that other people are going to have is there's 3 things that people have to solve. I think the first one we talked about is user experience, right? If you're using browser isolation, you have to make sure that the end user doesn't know that they're isolating, they're getting isolated. The moment they figured out there's something not working, they're going to go the other way, right? They're going to try and figure out other ways to get around it. And the second one is cost. You can have the perfect security, but if it costs 10 times more than your competitor that doesn't have isolation, it's very difficult to go and win the market, right? So the cost needs to be comparable. And the third one is scale. You need to be able to deliver this at full scale. In fact, one of the customers in Japan, they onboarded 90,000 users with SSL termination and isolation earlier this year. And then at one point, they just loved everything. They onboarded on Menlo Cloud 30,000 users in 1 hour. 1 hour.
Yeah.
Okay, with SSL termination, with isolating every single web session. So that type of scale, I think it's just very difficult for people to get to. And so yeah, so back to your conversation, I think these days, it's a lot easier. Like we can just come in and say, look, we can replace your proxy, and then we can SSL terminate everything, so you don't need SSL appliances on premises. We have AV Sandbox in the cloud, so you don't need your AV Sandbox on premises. So we can kind of go on, and it becomes a cost saving. We don't have alerts, we don't have this. So the business value articulation is actually very easy now.
Yeah, I guess from now on, I guess the market will start slowly moving towards that, that market there, and you may
I think
start
it has to, right? I think people are just like, very frustrated. And okay, so if there were other things in the market that help them solve the problems, that's one thing. It's just that there isn't any other solution today, because it's the same problem every day. Like you said, people are just getting tired, and hiring SOC engineers is very difficult.
Yeah. Sorry, I think we're just about out of time for our session, so we're gonna I think Stephen just got back online, so we'll open up the lines, I guess. Is that
Okay.
what we're doing now?
Yeah, so thanks Thomas, thanks Kowsik for sharing your experience. And we're about to open up the lines. There's a question from Daryl as well, but just before I open it up to you guys, please continue to throw your questions in there. I'll open up your lines. So to recap, you said three most important key takeaways when you think about implementing a security solution is: 1 is the user experience, number 2 is cost, and number 3 is the scalability towards the users and the environment.
Yep.
Was there anything else that you consider important?
Well, so I guess I am implicitly assuming that if you do all 3, you still get perfect security, right? You can have all 3 and still not have security. So if you're buying a security product, you can have the greatest user experience, it doesn't cost much, and it scales incredibly well, but the main purpose you bought it was to solve your security problem. So I mean, that would be my fourth one, but I just assumed that was already in that list.
I think another point for me is that zero trust security is what everybody wants.
Right.
It's where the market should be going, but it's not something that's easily implemented in this culture here in Japan.
Yeah.
That's my main point, and I think we need to find ways to change the views of that culture. Yeah.
Yeah, as I mentioned to you, I mean, to me at least, zero trust is less about the person. It's more about the devices that they use to access different data and applications. So I think if you contextualize it that way, then you're basically saying, look, I still trust the person. It's just that it's a shared resource that they're using, like the Android device, whatever. You don't know what's the state of that device is, right? So what you're not trusting is those devices, not the person. The person might still be very trusted and very, they're trying to do the right thing. And most people are.
Thanks, Kowsik. All right, Stephen.
Thanks, Kowsik. Hey, Daryl, are you able to unmute yourself and ask a
Yeah,
question?
definitely. Sorry, I just thought I'd wait until everyone was finished speaking before I hit the unmute button. Bit of background noise. Sorry.
Cool. Go ahead, Daryl.
No worries. So I guess the first question I had here was, so moving to security, moving to the cloud, and having everything secure up there is obviously very important. And then pushing people through these gateway servers, secure gateways, and that is another ways to enforce it. The gap that I keep seeing is the endpoint itself, because people try and say we've got protection on there, and every day I'm reading bypasses for Defender for anything running on the device. How do you, removing the VPN and the always on networking requirement, how do you continue to protect that device? 'Cause all they need to do is go around this control once, and then the thing's got a rootkit on there and you're missing traffic. Is there something that you have to cover that spot as well? Or any recommendations for that area of control?
Thomas, do you want to go? Do you want me to talk about it?
So as far as organizations goes, I think the control there is like the policies, right? I believe if there's a strong policy, there's going to be a need for security team to come in and enforce that policy. How to enforce that policy? Technologically, there's let's say for example, we do want to use browser isolation. We would only allow proxy to connect to the browser isolation. And have all traffics become isolated. Then they won't be able to use any other like workaround to get around that, right? Now, if you have a good GPO or something like and your computers are on a domain, then the configuration is set by administrator, so there's no way to what do you call it, like get around that. But with a personal computer, that might be a little bit harder, I think. But I don't know, Kowsik, you think with a personal computer there's going to be a?
Yeah, so I think there's also a difference between web and email. The reason why I'm saying that is, even if you think about Menlo, what we do with email is we have an email security gateway that, without really any analysis of the links, changes all of the links. And when you click on it, that's when we leverage isolation and actually take you there and protect you. So that model works on unmanaged devices just fine. Like you can get an email on your inbox, you check it on your phone, you check it on your laptop, desktop, doesn't matter. When you click on it, you always go to the cloud, and then that page gets isolated. And we do the same thing with attachments, right? We always try to open the attachments in the cloud, no matter what device you're using. So I think email is a perfect solution for unmanaged devices. But just stepping back a little bit, I mean, the way we think about it is, look, I mean, so there's two parts to it. Like, we need to get a user to the cloud, because if you get them to the cloud, then we can isolate and we can protect them, or we can protect whatever. And there's three different places where they can go to once we get them to the cloud. They can go to the internet, in which case we don't trust the internet, but we protect the user. They can go to a sanctioned or unsanctioned application like a CASB, like Salesforce, ADP, whatever, right? So same idea, in which case you trust the application, or you trust the user perhaps, and you want to protect the data there. And the last one is, once you get them in there, you can also do like a VPN replacement type of solution. It's called private access, where we can route them to internal to the data center to your private applications. So that way, in that case, the zero trust model flips over, where what you care about is what's running in your data center. You just assume the device is rogue. You don't trust the user's device. So I think this consolidated service of getting people to the cloud and then going 3 different ways, I think it's incredibly powerful because it just simplifies a lot of things.
Okay, so keep it containerized in the data center so you don't really care what is actually ever happening on the device itself.
Correct.
Okay, that's an interesting one. Thank you.
Cool. We have a question from Vincent. I'm just going to unmute you now. So. Vincent, can you hear us?
Hello. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi. I have kind of a similar background. Long time internet and security guy, for more than 25 years. And just an interesting, question for me is, given the high number or percentage of attacks and security issues that begin with phishing or email impersonation, why do you guys think application level protection, like pretty good privacy or cryptographic identification of users has never really been adopted? Is there something? Is it a user education or a user side difficulty issue, or is there some from the security vendor point of view? Do you see something else that's kind of blocking that kind of technology from taking off? Thanks.
So the specific ask around cryptographic user identity, is that what you said?
Yeah, just like pretty good privacy. I mean, these things have been around, since the beginning, where you can identify an email sender. And there were services way back at the beginning. I can remember a guy that one of the very early pioneers in Japan. He actually was using a service where he wouldn't accept email from you. Unless he had this application gateway in the middle that would actually, establish this email connection one time first, prove you work or you say you work kind of thing. But, pretty good privacy or these sort of cryptographic public key-based things, they've been around forever. But really, they're not part of corporate or enterprise, security strategy at all. And I just wonder if you guys have any insight or idea why that's the email side of it has never been as focused on as web.
Can I take this one, Kowsik?
Yeah, please.
So for these cryptographic stuff, right, or anything that has to do with email, I know there's a lot of technologies like DMARC, SPF, and things like that, all part of email. I think what happens is that you have to have the rest of the world also on the same technology, or it's not going to work. And then so what I think I would say specifically to the zero trust model is that, yeah, people may have the cryptographic, these cryptographic models that they use for emails and, encryption and things like that. That's still trusting that the encryption is good enough and it will never be decrypted. We all know that, given time and resources, any cryptography model can be decrypted, but with the zero trust model, I'm guessing you don't really need that anymore. That whole cryptographic stuff goes away, and that need for everyone else to be on the same technology that you have goes away as well. And that's kind of my way of thinking right there, and opinions about it. But Kowsik, do you have something else?
Yeah, PGP, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think, first of all, PGP, it's not, I mean, you have to be cybersecurity minded to use PGP, right? Like this, again, is one of those things, in the name of security, it's gotten so complex that an average person cannot use it, or it's too clunky, it's too cumbersome. They have to, it's a steep learning curve to be able to apply that security in practice. And I think that's, in general, that's been a challenge with a lot of the good security ideas, right? It's like you can have the greatest idea, but you got to bring it down and figure out, okay, how do I actually apply this to an organization that has 100,000 employees where 99% of those people are not security experts. They are trying to get their job done every day. So security needs to be behind the scenes making all this work. I think that's been a big impediment in terms of rolling out that type of security model.
Okay, thanks a lot for your answer. Great, thanks.
Hey, thanks everyone for your questions. I'm just gonna pause it I'm just going to pause it right here. Kowsik, one final question. If there's one takeaway you want people to remember from this webinar, what would it be?
Again, just thank you for the opportunity to come in and just kind of chat with Thomas. It's been a great conversation. I think the one thing is, zero trust is a relatively new term. I just want to emphasize that what you're not trusting, it's those devices and the machines, not the people. I think it's very important to realize that, right? And even the most honest person may click on a phishing link and have his or her Android infected and then come into the network and then have a lateral movement. This person probably didn't even know that the machine was infected. So I think the zero trust model is much more around systems to system communication and how do you sort of create that layer of insulation and making sure that depending on the context, you're either protecting the user or you're protecting the application and the data. And I think isolation has, again, I'm biased. I work for a company that does isolation, but I mean, I feel like it holds a promise for perfect security.
That's great. No, I love how what you bring to the market is a different approach to thinking about the problem of security. And it's really starting out, what is the problem we're trying to solve? How do we bring down the cost and increase the user experience in that way? So thanks again for coming and sharing your thoughts on this, Kowsik. Really honored to have you here. Also thanks to Thomas. So proud, also so proud to see guys in the community like yourself come up and also share their experience. And I think that was one of the key reasons I decided to start the Cyber Riskers chapter in Tokyo, was to allow people like you, Thomas, to come up, share your experience, and contribute more to the community. Because I think there are a lot of people like you who have more to share, who have the experience, and they want to pass that on to other people as well. So, if you have that same feeling, please reach out to me, and let's see how you can get more involved in the community. So with that, I just want to say there's another seminar coming on next month. We have a special guest. We have the managing director of Deloitte Red Teaming, and he's going to share his unique experience on, well, what's been the aftermath of COVID, and what does it look like how did Japan perform in a pre-COVID and a post-COVID world? So stay tuned for that. I'll upload more details on the website. And thanks again, everyone, for tuning in and for your support. I'll see you guys next month.
Thanks, Steven. Thanks, Kowsik.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Kowsik. Bye-bye.